Hello and welcome to World Breach Report number 22, where we discuss the files that can help you escape the cage that imprisons your minds. Thanks and gratitude to everyone who's liked, shared, and subscribed, and for helping to battle against the forces of darkness. Let's get into this week's episode, and to start off, I just want to talk a little bit about the show and how the show is evolving. Now, anything that doesn't evolve dies, so I think that we need to talk a little bit about just how crazy the world is getting. You know what I mean? In the last little while, I'm sure you've noticed that the world seems to be getting more and more wacky all the time. Like, it's to the point now that it's kind of hard to deny just how crazy everything's totally getting. Like, well, whether it's the news or this constant going on about disclosure or whether it's the ongoing wars, I used to think maybe it was just we were more aware of it because of the internet, like we could see it all. It was all being broadcast at us too fast. But in recent while, I've been able to unplug a little bit. I mentioned before that I started a new job where I'm learning to be an electrician, and love it. Really great. Wish I'd have got into it years ago. But, in that job, you're not online at all. Like, I went from working behind a desk to being out into the world and dealing with people and working on job sites and whatnot. And you begin to see very quickly that when you're unplugged from the system, what is, the world really is changing. And more than that, the people, because I go to different sites and locations and things like that. And I see everything from different offices to different offices, different types of businesses, different residences, that kind of a thing. And you get a real vibe for how families are acting out, how businesses are working, how business relationships are working, the way the cubicle farm has evolved. And you begin to see very, very quickly that there's something to this that seems odd, and it's not just within the last little while. Like, there's a lot of people now, especially, like, I grew up in a golden time, so I grew up in the 80s and then, was sort of watching the whole internet as it evolved. And the excitement that was in the internet in the 90s and the early 2000s is kind of gone now. And now that excitement has become this realization that the internet is the bars of the prison. The Wi-Fi range is the broadcast range of the leash of your life. So I'm beginning to realize now that there's a few things that information should be knowledge. You would think that, like, applied information should be knowledge, but now it seems like information is mind control. And I'm not really a big fan of that, just personally speaking. So I'm going to kind of widen the scope a little bit of the news of the show. I want to talk about things in this show that might get me in a little bit of trouble. I hope not. I can't really afford to be canceled because I'm Canadian and they can put you in jail up here for all kinds of stuff. But, I think that I have a bit of an obligation to you to talk about the things that are emerging in our culture around us. Now, this all relates exactly to the World Breach Report, which is what this show is. We talk about something paranormal and the paranormal happenings of our world. And that is becoming more, that line is becoming more and more hard to envision. Like, as technology advances, as AI advances, as the news is coming out, now UFOs are becoming mainstream science. And let's be honest, the paranormal is just science we don't understand. I don't believe in magic. I believe in these things that are existing, but we just don't understand how they interact with our lives. Rather than put my head in the sand, like, I don't want you to put your head in the sand, I think we all need to take a step back and go, what is this? How does this actually work? And now as we go forwards, it's important to realize that maybe some of the things we've been told in the past are not true. Like when they said that they used to make fun of people, destroyed their lives, in fact, for talking about little green men and UFOs. And now the people in the highest places of power are talking about UFOs. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for all of us back in the day? What does that mean for all the people who had their lives destroyed for this? It's kind of an emergent time right now, and we need to be aware of what is true, what is not true, and what is purposely not true, and whether or not you're being lied to. These are important things we need to discuss and look at. So let's get into this week's show, and I hope that, if you think that this is a good idea, if you like the format and how I'm going with this, it's not going to be 100% paranormal, but I'll tell you, it's going to be like about 200% surreal. However, of course, as always, my focus on this show is the paranormal. I just think that as you begin to realize that the forces that run the world are actually people wearing robes and might be eating kids, there comes a point when maybe world events, it's not just about, silly stories about, monsters and Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. Once you begin to realize this isn't real, it's not so silly anymore, and it starts to take on a much more sinister tone. And it's up to you as a monster hunter. It's up to you as to be someone who takes responsibility for themselves, for their own mind, takes responsibility for what you put into your body, what you put into your brain, what you put into your soul. And that's something we should talk about, for sure. So, with that in mind, let's get into the show and see if we can get a couple thousand of these episodes down, shall we? But to start with, this is episode number 22. And our opening story tonight is about an 11,000-year-old human site has been discovered, allegedly. Now, this is an interesting story. A discovery of sprawling prehistoric site in North America that is forcing experts to rethink how advanced early societies may have been to rethink how advanced early societies may have been long before recorded history. So essentially they found a site in Saskatchewan that's like 11,000 years old. A major archaeological discovery near Sturgeon Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan, or Saskatchewan as I like to call it. Saskatchewan is an interesting province. If you happen to be American or come from some other part of the world, if you look at the map, you'll see there's British Columbia, Alberta, and then Saskatchewan. And this is related to a lot of, the Japanese believe the Buddhist teachings I believe, that, the universe is comprised of, in the Taoist teachings, there's earth, air, fire, and void. And as the elements. And all the void in the world, the source of all the void in the world, is in fact Saskatchewan. So if you've never actually been there, just imagine, take a blank piece of paper from your printer, lay it flat, and that would be Saskatchewan. This place is so barren and so flat that they have to put trees on a map there. And if you cut a tree down, you can get in big trouble because you've actually changed the map. I am not a fan of Saskatchewan. Now, what I will say about Saskatchewan is that the people in Saskatchewan are the nicest people ever. These are people who live in a void, and yet somehow they're able to exist. I would not want to live in Saskatchewan. I have lived near Saskatchewan. I have driven through Saskatchewan. It's one of those kind of things you only want to do once. But let's get into it. The revelation of an 11,000-year-old pre-contact settlement, one that is of the oldest known indigenous sites on the continent, confirms the highly organized societies exist in the region far earlier than previously believed, reveals a report from the University of Saskatchewan. This places it among some of the world's most recognized ancient sites, such as the Great Pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge of England, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, each known for their immense historical significance with their role in shaping human civilization. The Azowanahik Council, meaning a place to cross in Cree, is spearheading efforts to protect, study the site alongside archaeologists from the University of Saskatchewan and the University of Calgary, reports Live Science. The council, which includes elders, knowledge keepers, educators, youths, and academics, is committed to ensuring the site's preservation. Now, this sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. However, I'd like to see a little more evidence of that. So there's this is one of these things in Canada you have to be really careful talking about, because there was a thing about these things called residential schools, where they said that there was these mass graves that got found outside of where these residential schools were, where apparently the story is that somehow these Catholic priests and nuns were taking kids and burying them in mass graves, apparently, or these kids died and were buried in mass graves somehow. But anyway, there's the idea that these mass graves. And this all came from this idea where these guys took this ground-penetrating radar, got a hit on this ground-penetrating radar and said, look, it's mass graves. Nobody's dug anything up. Nobody's actually produced any bodies or skeletons or anything like that. And to say that nobody has produced any bodies or skeletons or anything like that will probably land you in pretty hot water. So everything regarding First Nations in Canada, as you could probably tell, is pretty political. You know what I mean? It's one of these kind of things where right now British Columbia they're handing back huge portions of the land back to the First Nations. They're saying, yeah, like most of Richmond and Delta, that they've been saying in schools and stuff that it's unceded territory and all this kind of jazz. So as you can imagine, this is a hot topic where people are like, hey, you own your house. Oh, maybe you don't now. Maybe the elders own your house. And so it's all like the whole idea of give back to the First Nations. I guess they're doing that, and now this is causing huge problems. So when you come across a story like this that clearly has political and racial inflammations, where it's like, hey, because in Canada, if you're First Nations, if you're born from a First Nations family, that is to say you're a descendant of a Native American or Native North American or an Indian, or I don't know, First Nations, I guess is what you call them now, you have special rights. And these rights are based upon your race. So if you're a member of this certain group, member of this certain race, you get special rights. And as you can imagine, there might be a bit of a problem with that, especially when you're not a member of that race and you happen to be talking about it. So you can get yourself into pretty hot water. But aside from all that, just giving you a little bit of backstory, I'd like to see a little bit more information about this 1,000-year-old pre-contact settlement, because comparing, some sediment and a few tools to, like, say, the pyramids or Göbekli Tepe might, I'm going to need a little bit more verification before I would completely go with that, because this is a very politically charged story. And you've also got to bear in mind that Canada is essentially run by the Chinese. I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. It's our own secret, like, spy people, CSIS they're called. It's like the CIA, but it's for Canada. They've said in reports that China has unbelievable influence, and we have in our political states, they have ministers who work for China. We have Chinese police stations on our soil in Canada. We have foreign ownership is like, you can be from another country, you can be from anywhere in the world, like China, and buy all the land in Canada you want. So Canada's in a bit of real problem right now, and because of the political situation in the States, where everybody's kind of orange man bad, but I don't know. I mean, the way I see it is, and I've long since said this, I occasionally make prophecies, and here's my prophecy. I don't think that Canada is going to exist in another 7 years. Like Canada, as you look at the map right now, I don't think it's going to be that way in another 7 years. Starting with the coronavirus, when that happened, I went, yep, that's it for the country. We're pretty much toast. So that was about 3 years ago. So we're going to see what happens in the next 7 years, and whether or not Canada, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, to be honest, but I don't think I am wrong. And as such, it seems to me that you've got only really 3 options for where you want to be taken over by. You can either be taken over by Russia, you can be taken over by China, or you can be taken over by the United States. And for me, personally, if I'm going to get to vote on who my occupier is going to be, I would vote for big guns and rock and roll. So, I would kind of hope that the states would take over, because, that way I'd be able to actually buy some proper tools to do the jobs I want to do. But as you can imagine, this is a very, very sensitive topic. And these are all my opinions. Hopefully I don't get nailed down for hate speech, but there's a lot of controversy around a lot of this kind of stuff. So it's a hard one to go with. So when you hear a study like this coming out of Canada, and you're touching on so many political things, especially because, our universities are, it's all quite a bit of government funding. All you have to do is look at what's happened to certain other people that happen to work for universities, and they said something went against the government, their lives were destroyed. So it's one of those kind of things you look at that and you say, oh, should I even comment on this? But, sure. Apparently there's an 11,000-year-old human site that's been discovered. It's bringing into question the whole rigmarole of how humanity settled here and all the rest of it, which, sure, I'm okay with that. I don't really believe the pre-contact settlement history story anyway. I mean, they say that, everybody came over the Barren Land Bridge. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with your idea that there's something older than 11,000 years. I agree with that. And I'm sure that this site is more than 11,000 years old. I agree with that. And 100%, the First Nations that lived here got screwed over. Yeah, 100%. I'll give you that too. But I mean, your math on these stories doesn't really math. You know what I mean? Like, I'd want to see a little bit more about what's going on. And I while I'll look at your evidence, I don't always agree with your conclusions, which is the same in a lot of cases, whether that be Bigfoot, whether that be monks, whether that be history. But I definitely would be interested to know more about this and to know more about, what's going to be coming around the corner. And here's a story leading into the next story talking about spiritualism and the human past, is that I couldn't resist this one. I had to throw this one into the mix, is that a robot just became a monk at a Buddhist temple. Yeah, you knew I was going to cover this one. The humanoid promised to obey humans, save energy, and treat other robots peacefully. South Korean Buddhist leaders have recently started to embrace artificial intelligence. Robots are destined to collaborate with humanity in every field of the future. Han Min-suk, a manager of the Jogye, Jogye. Sorry, bro, don't know how to say that, but we're going to go with Jogye, okay? Apologies if I'm screwing that up. The largest Buddhism in South Korea, tells the New York Times' John Yoon. It will only be natural for them to be part of our festival. For the temple, this marks the first time a robot has participated in the Sugi initiation ceremony, where followers pledge their devotion to Buddha and his teachings. Gabby, a Buddhist name that refers to mercy, Yonhap News Agency's report, was made by Unitree Robotics, a Chinese civilian robotics company. Is there a Chinese civilian robotics company? I don't know. The model G1 retails for starting about $13,500. Kind of hard for people who all they own is saffron robes, but yeah, if you don't happen to own saffron robes and you can afford it, you can pick one of these robots up. During the ceremony, Gabby agreed to 5 vows, usually recited by human monks, and silently altered for the humanoid. The robot pledged to respect life, act with peace towards other robots and objects, listening to other humans, refrain from acting or speaking in a deceptive manner, and save energy. There's also a 5th directive, which was somehow censored for later in the movie when they would reveal the final plot. No, I'm sorry, that was RoboCop. But yeah, so RoboMonk is a thing now. We've got robot monks, Yeah, one could even perhaps call them server monks, I suppose. But yes, there's robot monks now. So this is quite probably just a huge gimmick. This is just a way for this company to get their robot in the market and to make some notes for everyone to see what they are. Because, for 13 grand, you too can buy yourself a robot monk. As a matter of fact, you get a robot and claim that it's anything you want. You could say it's a robot stripper if you wanted to. But I'm just saying, I saw the story, and yeah, it's a little bit clickbaity, but, robot monks, me being who I am, I had to click on it, So, moving forwards with this technological trend, and also the digital prison, you get to pay for your own surveillance now. This is pretty great. The Fitbit Air. You remember Fitbits? Get your steps sandwich. That whole thing is, I use a wellness tracker and a Garmin watch, because I'm trying to, keep track of my health and all that kind of jazz. That which gets measured gets achieved. But I think that this is one of these kind of things you have to be careful with. The Fitbit Air itself is a small plastic puck about 1.4 inches long and 0.7 inches wide. It slots into various bands onto the hold on the bottom-mounted sensors against your wrist. There is no display pointing upward. So it's just a disc you carry. It's like an Apple AirTag. And the entire device is covered by the fabric or plastic of the band. It is streamlined and a potentially stylish look in an uncharacteristic fashion. The Fitbit app is getting a major makeover with a new name, featuring a new interface with a more extensive material, expressive aesthetic, and redesigns for menus and labs. You also won't see Fitbit branding in many places. The Fitbit Premium subscription will become Google Health Premium. Without a subscription, the app still does all the basic things like tracking your health stats and automatically logging workouts and showing it all on a pretty dashboard online. With the premium subscription, you get all the features of the Fitbit Premium as well as new AI health coach. It's a chat bot, so you can ask about health or wellness topics, and the answers are grounded in your health data. Fitbit Air launches on May 26 for $100. And included in the includes a performance loop band. It comes with 3 months of the new Google Health Premium that replaces Fitbit Premium and adds Google's AI coach. Meanwhile, if you want to pay for this, it's going to be $10 per month or $100 per year to have the Fitbit Premium, which is now AI Health. So you get to pay for that, pay $100, and then, in the prescription population, you get to pay for that as well. I don't know if I like that very much when, you could just do it all with books, but, you can get around this kind of thing. I'm sure that just like there's how everyone was like, originally the internet's going to kill us all. Well, were they wrong though? Really? Were they wrong? Has the internet screwed us up? it could be argued that is social media the internet? Well, the social media wouldn't exist without the internet. So yeah, kinda. Really, right? Like, the internet has kind of screwed us up, so maybe there's something to be said for this. But just like anything else, just like steel or gunpowder or whatever, drugs, anything, it's all in how you use it. And as we can see here, the forces of darkness are working overtime to make stuff as dystopian and surreal as you can possibly get. And talking about dystopian surreal, let's talk about these new surreal ocean AI sphere data centers, which this is right out of Akira, okay? This is like, imagine a large orb floating in the ocean, which is a data center that powers it. What? Yeah. Silicon Valley investors such as Palantir, co-founder Peter Thiel, have bet hundreds of millions of dollars on deploying AI data centers powered by waves in the middle of the world's oceans. A move that coincides with the mounting challenges tech companies are facing in building AI centers projects on land. The latest investment round of $140 million is intended to help the company oh man, these names, Panthalassa, complete a pilot manufacturing facility near Portland, Oregon, and speed up deployments of wave-riding nodes designed to generate electrical power, according to May 4th press release. Instead of sending renewable energy to a land-based data center, these floating nodes would directly power onboard AI chips and transmit inference tokens that representing AI models outputs to customers worldwide via satellite link. Yeah, these, you can see a picture of one of these things here, these giant orbs, which it looks, well, you want to check it out, okay? It's the whole thing is like, yeah, sure, that's not so weird. The newest node prototype, called Ocean 3, is scheduled for testing in the northern Pacific Ocean later in 2026. The latest version reaches about 85 meters in length and would stand nearly as tall as London's Big Ben in New York City's Flaretron building, according to the Financial Times. So you can imagine this. And if it's out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that would be international waters. So, you know, I imagine there's going to be like security guarding these very Appleseed looking domes. Yeah, I don't know how much more Appleseed you can get than this. That's pretty wild stuff in a world where you've got, you know, USOs, deep sea submersibles, outworld intelligence, and what's happening to make this even more dystopian and imprisoning the human race? Eat Zee Bugs and live in Zee mud huts built by the robots. That's right. This is truly disturbing. A rather unusual home is going up in a ranch south of Austin made of clay and built by robots. An adobe home under construction in a proto-town near Luling, Texas, shows thick earthen walls built using robotic automation. Terran Robotics plans to scale the technology for affordable housing. That's right, if you're poor, you get to be dirt poor. This is the cheapest material to build with, said co-founder Daniel Whittle. Our goal is affordable housing. It's incredibly nice to live inside of. It regulates humidity, sound, and temperature better than just about any material. But unlike traditional adobe homes, which are built by hand, this one is being constructed by a robot that doesn't just follow a blueprint, it adjusts it as it works. It's kind of like trying to replicate how a human might build an adobe house, said a software engineer, Anastasia, said that right, Nicolina? We are able to get very precise in terms of where its position is relative to the wall, Nicolina says, and how much is hitting the wall to compress it into a shape. The company says the entire setup can fit in a single truck, and one operator can eventually oversee multiple construction sites at once. Yeah, so what they do is they scoop up dirt, which they call clay, and then they 3D print it out into a mud hut that you get to live in, you know, and that'll be in your 20-minute cities, I guess. I don't know, man. I don't know. When we look back at, I think right after, remember when Art Nouveau came out? Yeah, I invite you right now, go Google things that were Art Nouveau. I think that was kind of one of the peaks of our culture. And if I was going to go for a future, I'd much prefer the Art Nouveau sort of aesthetic than I would for this crazy brutalist aesthetic we got going on here. This is, so you can eat your bugs and live inside your dirt house. That's kind of where it's at. Or you could buy yourself a TW200 and prepare for the coming, whatever is coming next, that's for sure. And begin to maybe unplug, maybe get off the internet, maybe stop eating sugar, flour, and salt. Maybe just a thought. Like, what would happen if you did stop eating flour, sugar, and salt? Have you considered that? I've recently stopped doing that. I stopped doing that about 16 days ago now. Yeah, it's true. No lie. I gave up everything. I gave up caffeine. I gave up salt. I gave up anything made of sugar, all processed food, and bread, flour, pretty much anything that would give you joy. This is crazy from a guy who used to like mainline Dr. Pepper like it was going out of style. But on this, the whole genius of this was the idea that that includes all sorts of like, you know, drugs. There's no weed or booze or anything like that. That's long, long gone. But when you think about like, there was Tim Taylor talked about in his book, one of these podcasts, I was saying how, you know, caffeine represses your psychic abilities. This is one of the things. So a lot of these guys who are trying to like dig into the deeper knowledge to get inspiration, they get off of caffeine. That's one of the things that's like a no caffeine thing at all. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, I built myself a Mahatma mirror and I was doing some meditation experiments. I thought, well, let's do this properly. Let's ditch the caffeine as well. And I found that my intuition has gotten a hell of a lot stronger and in really creepy ways. So I just kind of kept going with it. I'm like, well, how hard would it be to give up sugar? How hard would it be to kind of go basically hardcore, you know, typo paleo? So you're eating like a lot of spinach and salad, a lot of eggs, cottage cheese. I mean, cottage cheese, I suppose, is processed, but, you know, there are limits. But no more bread, nothing that you could buy at 7-Eleven, really. You're only really eating just natural food. And I found that, yeah, I'm dropping weight like crazy and I'm feeling better and I don't really miss it. And after a couple weeks, man, you kind of, I went to a birthday party and I had a breadstick from the Olive Garden. You know, they got the breadsticks and the salad. And I was, you know, I'm not a jerk about it. You know, if I go out to a public function, because the problem with these kind of diets is not the birthday party you go to. It's the 9 to 5 every day. So if you go to a party, all they got is lasagna and some breadsticks. Have some lasagna and breadsticks. It's not going to kill you. And, you know, I didn't go crazy with it. Just had a little chunk of lasagna and a whole bunch of salad. And I had a breadstick. But I was really looking forward to it. I'm like, wow, ooh, I get to have a breadstick. And I ate the breadstick. And it was like, less enjoyable than I imagined, you know, which was kind of a letdown. Kind of a letdown. You want this to be like this hyper happy experience. So your body changes. And it made me really think about how you can evolve. Like I'm in my 50s now. So if I'm in my 50s and I can make a change like this and I can see these kind of profound differences, and there's all these diseases that are going on right now, fibromyalgia and diseases that, you know, exist, but then science is like, no, that's not a real disease. And there's people who are suffering, you know what I mean? And they don't want to admit it's there for whatever reason. So if we stop looking at food as fuel and you start looking at it as medicine and start moving away from big pharma, it's not like you have to eat magical food. It's that you have to stop drinking pop. Get off sugar. Like, do that. There's a video, I'm going to throw it in the description up here, called Sugar, the Bitter Truth. And you should probably check that out. It's not great, okay? And you know this. You know that sugar's bad for you. You know all these soft drinks are bad for you. And we'll say something witty like, oh, well, if I gave up all the sugar, boy, there'd be nothing left for me whatsoever, which is, you know, whatever. We'll make these justifying statements. I get it, bro. I get it. But you need to understand that what you're doing is bad. And you know it's bad. So maybe it's not like you can run a marathon tomorrow. You know, you start with like just going for a walk. Going for a walk a little bit further, maybe you run between telephone poles and then you just walk and then you try to stretch that out, but there has to be the desire for it. In order for there to be a desire for it, you have to admit that there's something wrong. And I'm telling you, man, the white deaths, boy, flour, salt, and sugar, if we can get off of that, and yeah, that means that there's no more lattes, that means a lot of the things that we do to make ourselves feel better because our lives are crap, we'd have to change that. And it's a big shift, man. It's a big shift to look after your food. So, but I'm giving it to you. Between that, doing some meditation, taking accountability for what you put in your body, you'd be surprised what kind of these health benefits could come from that. What have you got to lose other than a few pounds and maybe some of the things that make you feel sick? And of course, big news is that the Pentagon has begun releasing the new files on UFOs, which is kind of a nothing burger so far. But there's been another huge dump. Buzz Aldrin observed a fairly bright light source while aboard Apollo 11, a mysterious object making multiple 90-degree turns on a speedy clip, a blaringly bright object during corkscrews, over the skies of Kazakhstan. Those are some of the details of a new batch on UFOs that the Pentagon began releasing Friday as President Donald Trump taps into the public's long-held curiosities about unidentified anomalous phenomenon in the broader universe. Though the Pentagon has been working on declassified documents for years, Trump put an attention back on the topics ago by teasing a major UFO dump. Now, I looked at a lot of these stories, and a lot of these stories are new to you if you're not in this space, but all they've done is basically confirmed the things that have been said on Coast to Coast AM for a super long time, like photos on the moon of things on the moon that shouldn't be there. Like, that's bizarre. And like guys like Richard C. Hoagland and all these cats who have been long derided and called kooky, you know, he's saying, hey, there's something on the moon. And there's that book that came out, We're Not Alone, like the moon, there's something going on the moon. Like there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now that's coming out. And maybe this is trying to hide from some of the political stuff that's going on in the world right now. But one thing's for sure, there's going to be more coming out here. And Representative Tim Burchett, who I like this guy. He makes skateboards. I don't know if you know that, but Tim Burchett actually makes skateboards in his barn. It'd be kind of neat to get one with like a little UFO on it. If I get one signed by him, it'd be kind of cool. But Tim Burchett was commented that said the UFO files released are just a drop in the bucket and that the real holy crap part is on the way. Which, yeah, what does that mean though? What does that mean when they say the real holy crap part is on the way? I mean, other than the fact they're saying, yeah, the stuff they saw on the moon was real, and all these documents that have been in the UFO community for a long time are real. And now it's kind of come forward that, oh yeah, how does this relate to the world breach? Ru-Roh, religious leaders are told to prepare now for UFO disclosure. Why would the religious leaders care? Why would they bother? Well, influential pastors are claiming they've been told to prepare for their followers for shocking revelations about UFOs, which may upend beliefs in the Bible. Perry Stone, a well-known evangelist, author, and Bible teacher from Tennessee, warned that fellow pastors were recently invited to a secret meeting with the U.S. intelligence officials to prepare for the release of the secret files on extraterrestrials. According to Stone, the officials warned a small group of pastors with a large reach in the Christian community that the government was about to release reports and possibly videos of aliens and spacecraft that were not from this planet. Or this world, probably. On the April 27 video posted on his YouTube channel, the evangelical claimed the pastors were told the existence of reptilian creatures, UFOs, and materials from non-human origin, and that things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, as opposed to what else could it be other... I mean, you've already said reptilian creatures and UFOs from other planets. Feb 19, President Trump ordered the Pentagon and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to release information the government possessed regarding UFOs and alien life. Last week, Trump said the first files would be released very, very soon and with some very interesting things from the public. So, yeah, you know, why would they be so concerned about that? Is this just more, you know, because let's remember the Brookings report said that, you know, people were concerned that when the proof of alien life came out, no one would go to school anymore, no one would go to their jobs because they realized that the whole universe is not human-centric, which I disagree. I disagree. They can have all the UFOs that they want. They can have all the interdimensional creatures they want. It's still human-centric. They're coming to our planet. And people are like, what makes you say it's your planet? I do. I say it's my planet. Me and, you know, basically the non-existent guns that Canadians no longer own. But pretty much humans have dominion of this planet, okay? And maybe we're going to have to fight for it. Maybe we're going to have to take back our planet because these guys showed up and they're like, yeah, it's not your planet anymore. Yeah, it kind of is, actually. And if it never was our planet, well, then it's going to be, because this is our home, and we're going to live here. So, sorry about your luck. And to just bend the knee to a bunch of weirdos and lights who are afraid of us, because, yeah, they're afraid of us. If they weren't afraid of us, why would they be acting this way? Why are they always telling you to calm down? Why is it that they are trying to hybridize with us? Why are they trying to do that? Because if they're so goddamn advanced, they wouldn't be trying to hybridize with humans so they can exist within this realm. They have no emotions. They can't exist in an emotional space. So you know what? If you have to, you know, that's why they always want to keep you calm. And the only people that ever seem to escape their telepathic grasp is when you get too much rage or too much intensity going on. They can't keep control of you. So yeah, they definitely want to keep humans docile. Definitely want to poison you over the long term. Make your brain smaller. You know what I mean? But I think that, once again, we are far more powerful than you know. And don't be a chicken, man. Don't let them tie your wings down. Remember, you can fly. You are a sovereign being, and the world is far more vast and you have far more power than you even realize right now. Don't give in to this hype that they're trying to teach you where it's like, oh yeah, we're all just, this little worm and we should be grateful to even be allowed to exist. No, that's crap. That's crap. We've existed for thousands of years and we're going to exist for thousands of more years. And yeah, you might want to call me Team Humanity. Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. And that's not to say that I want to, stare down the front sight at any alien that shows up. That's cool. We can be friends. We can work. These guys probably need space marines, and there's no better space marines in the galaxy than humans. Sorry. And if they are, hey, let's get the technology thing sorted out, and they'll figure out that, hey, we're pretty good at this stuff. The whole conflict thing, we're good at it. We declare war and stuff all the time. We declare war on each other. We're like a warlike species. Sorry. And really, when you look at how we exist on this planet, isn't it kind of obvious that we're sort of made that way? So don't give in and don't give up, man. Don't buy this hype where it's like, oh yeah, it's all just, we should all just cower and become these ultimate pacifists and give up everything. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's it. I think there's a huge push right now to make people not have any conviction whatsoever. And I'm not buying it. I think you should have conviction. I think you should remember that you come from, you're a human. Okay? Humans are awesome. And yeah, we got our flaws. We got our faults. Yeah, we do a lot of damage, but we do amazingly brilliant things. And as a matter of fact, there's so much beauty and transcendent gorgeousness that has come from the human past that we just need to tie on to the good things and focus in on that. Maybe we should take charge of our cultural diet and decide what works, what doesn't, from our vast history of things that we know work and does not work, and just focus on that. If there's a social structure, an idea that works, let's use it. If there's an art that you like, use it. We live in a time and space now that with technology, you don't have to be governed by the masses. You don't have to seek consent of the group. You don't need to do that. If you wanted to live as a goth or live in an Art Nouveau lifestyle, you can do that. That's something that you have the capability to do, and forget whether or not anyone else agrees with you. You can find groups now that support anything. If you wanted to be like a goth vegetarian, you can do that. If you wanted to be like a goth meat eater, you can do that. We have technology that's trying so hard to keep us from being fat and trying to make us healthy that all we have to do is have the desire to move in a direction, and we will move in that direction. So what does that mean? It means they're trying to control your desire. They're trying to control what you want. And don't let them. Live on purpose.